On December 28th, protests broke out at Grand Bazaar in Tehran. By January 8th, protests had spread nationwide. Then the internet went dark, phone networks failed.
It was over 3,000 people, including security forces, children. This is not a diplomacy, this is a collective punishment from USA towards Iran.
Okay, so let's start from the beginning. On December 28th, protests broke out at Grand Bazaar in Tehran. Traders and merchants organized these protests because of the collapse of Iranian currency, rial.
So really, it wasn't about the ideology, it was about the money.
This was just the beginning of something that soon became international. By January 8, protests had spread nationwide, with tens of thousands of people reportedly taking these protests into 400 cities. These unrests were supported by prominent figures in Iran, including exiled Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi. Then the internet went dark, phone networks failed, and gunfire echoed through the streets of Tehran. According to Human Rights Watch, Iranian authorities responded with bullets, mass arrests, and silence in the name of crowd controls. For a week, there were no casualty reports.
No, that's not true. Our government did release a number. It was over 3,000 people, including security forces, children, and the brainwashed terrorists that the foreign countries sent.
Independent human rights groups put death tolls much higher, nearly 5,137, including women and children. Iran has a history of manipulating death tolls, but any number that is released shows us what the scale of what actually happened. Alongside this came mass arrests, daily detentions, and internet shutdowns. State media reported damages to government buildings, banks, public infrastructure. Journalists were silenced and newspapers were shut down. Between 2023 and 2025, tensions arose between Iran, Israel, and the United States, reflecting on long-standing hostility, military pressure, and selective enforcement of international laws.
All of what is happening right now is not an isolated event, but more like an extension or an escalation of the 2023 Gaza war. So let me give you some context. So there were a lot of armed groups across Syria and Iraq, and they launched attacks towards US and Israeli targets. The Western media immediately started blaming Iran for this, but Tehran maintained its positions and said that all of these groups acted independently and acted as a response to regional instability.
The United States responded with airstrikes on what it called as Iran-linked targets, and these actions were condemned by Iran as a violation of its sovereignty. At the same time, the conflict widened. Yemen's Ansar Allah movement targeted Red Sea shipping, and Hezbollah intensified pressure along Israel's northern border.
So in 2024, these attacks and tensions, all of this escalated a lot. It all started from Israel. So Israel launched a lot of strikes on Damascus and killed a lot of senior Iranian officers. As a response to this, Iran also launched large-scale drones and missiles targeting Israel, calling it self-defense. Then there was a lot of back and forth launching of missiles from Iran and Israel, and this killed many leaders of Hamas and Hezbollah. Then was the most direct and largest attacks from Israel towards Iran, targeting Iran's air defenses and missile facilities. In 2025, with the return of Donald Trump to presidency, came a lot of economic pressure to Iran. US started giving a lot of sanctions to Iran in terms of oil, banking, trade. All of this started building a lot of economic pressure, the currency started weakening, and the civilians' lives started being affected a lot. This was just the beginning of the downfall of Iran's economy, which later escalated into all those protests. In Tehran's views, this is not a diplomacy, this is a collective punishment from USA towards Iran.
On June 12, the International Atomic Energy Agency had reported that Iran breached certain nuclear commitments. Iran criticized the agency's neutrality and announced new plans for new enrichment facilities. Israel responded with strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities and military sites, prompting Iranian retaliation. On June 21, the United States directly struck Iranian nuclear facilities at Fordo, Isfahan, and Natanz, a move Iran condemned as an unprecedented escalation. Iran later struck a US base in Qatar. No casualties were reported, and a ceasefire was soon announced on June 23rd.
Tehran's views, all of that has been happening from 2023 to 2025 are a result of constant reimposition of sanctions, constant military threats, and unequal applications of the international laws. So Iran's trust in diplomacy is really broken, and the diplomacy itself is at a fragile state. Let's just not assume that Iran is only facing problems with USA and Israel. Iran is also facing problems with a lot of countries in its neighborhood. Iran's influence over the Middle Eastern countries is steadily falling apart. From countries like Syria to Lebanon to Iraq to Yemen, Iran has a lot of proxy groups in these countries. Now, these proxy groups are kind of losing their ability to shape events beyond its borders. So these years of military pressure from USA and Israel is kind of destabilizing Iran's power to influence these neighboring countries. A major event contributing to this matter happened in 2024. It was the death of Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of the famous terrorist group Hezbollah. Now, the death of this man wasn't just a loss of a key figure, but it exposed how vulnerable the proxy networks became after that. Now, after his death, the proxy groups in Lebanon and Iraq, they started getting a lot of pressure. Their ability to influence the regional politics within the neighboring countries started reducing drastically. Syria was once at the center of Iran's regional strategies. For years, Iran supported Bashar al-Assad and secured their influence over their land. But by late 2024, rebel groups led by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham overthrew Assad's government. Now, after this collapse, all the supply routes to Hezbollah got cut off and their presence got completely weakened in the territory of Syria. Now, all of these factors that I just mentioned, their allies got weakened, their networks got disrupted, all of this taken together is a major setback for Iran's regional strategy, and their ambition to be a dominant in the Middle Eastern power got completely unraveled. Iran is going through some major economic crisis. Now, this is because the value of the currency rial is decreasing and is leading to a lot of inflation and lessening of the government's income. Now, all of this is also causing problems for the people because their purchasing power is going down, which is what led to the protests that we saw. Now, the protests, which started at December 28, it was mostly organized by shopkeepers and traders first. Why? Because they're not able to cope up with the rising prices and the values of the currency constantly changing. They are not able to set their prices. They are not able to restock goods. Why? Because people aren't purchasing anymore. All of this is causing too many disruptions in their daily business operation. Now, like we already know, the main reason for the unrest was the value of the currency falling. Let's see how much of a difference it's actually making. At the starting of 2025, $1 was equal to 817,000 riyals. By the end of 2025, $1 is equal to 1.5 million riyals. That's a huge number. From 2020, the value of the real currency has lost about 800% of its value. This is making all the imports so much more expensive and people are not able to save anymore. From the past 5 years, inflation in Iran is above 40% most of the time. Food inflation is also at its peak, reaching about 58% since last September. At the same time, wages of the family are also not increasing, so their daily income is at an all-time low. Iran's oil production and exports have been hitting a massive decline in 2025. Analysts estimate that the oil production is going down by 300,000 barrels per day to 500,000 barrels per day. All of this is really contributing to the lessening of the government's revenue. Not just oil productions, even exports are declining by 16% in 2025. And all of this is adding a lot of pressure to the foreign exchange reserves of the Iran's government. International sanctions put up by countries like US is limiting Iran's access to foreign banking systems, to foreign trade and to foreign currencies. All of this is really restricting oil exports of Iran, making it really hard for the government to make money, thereby managing the economy. As we have understood by now that the income from the oil is a very integral part of the Iran government finances. So the lowering of exports, high inflation and fluctuation in the currency is all affecting the economic planning of Iran. All of this is adding a lot of pressure to the households of Iran, businesses of Iran and most importantly, the government of Iran.
India's position here is beginning to show a very clear strategic and economic consequences. One of the most visible impacts is the uncertainty around the Shabuhar port project, which is a key pillar of India's connectivity strategy to Afghanistan and Central Asia. Despite signing a long-term operating agreement in 2024, India has made no fresh budgetary allocations for the Shabuhar port project in its latest union budget, putting caution amid renewed sanctions and geopolitical tension. India's energy and trade interests are also at stake here, and Iran still remains a potential long-term energy partner for India, and instability in these relations risks limiting future access to oil, gas, and regional trade routes. At the same time, India faces diplomatic pressure from the Western partners over its Iran policy. Now, at the United Nations Human Rights Council, India voted against resolution condemning Iran's violent crackdown on protests and extending an independent investigative mandate. The resolution still passed, but India's no vote put it alongside a small group of countries opposing this motion. New Delhi did not issue a detailed explanation, though officials have traditionally argued against a country-specific resolution over the grounds of sovereignty. India's stance highlights its increasingly narrow diplomatic space. New Delhi must balance its strategic ties with Iran against its deepening partnerships with the United States and Israel. While India seeks sanction waivers and cooperation from Washington for projects like Shabuhar, its UN vote risks weakening diplomatic leverage at a time when support is really crucial. Critics argue that India's vote was geopolitically risky because Iran has historically supported India with regional access and connectivity, and projects like the Shabuhar project offer strategic long-term value to the country. Vote opposing international scrutiny of Iran may deliver short-term goodwill in Tehran, but it complicates India's global positioning and also risks slowing down key projects that depend on Western cooperation. India's no on Iran reflects high-stake foreign policy calculations. While aimed at preserving strategic autonomy and ties with Tehran, it also exposed India to diplomatic and economic costs. As tensions around Iran deepens, New Delhi's ability to protect its long-term interests without alienating key partners will remain a critical test of its foreign policy.
Thank you for watching. This was our very first video, so please go easy on us.
We are student journalists, so if you want to learn something, please tell us.
And if you have any kind of feedback or criticism, please do tell us in the comments.
And see you soon in the next video. Bye bye.